Alrighty, so this is going to be a relatively in-depth video going over pretty much all the basics of how to implement a skeletal mesh into a character model. Now, I'm going to start this off by saying this character we're going to be using already has a working mirror table, okay? It also already has its proper skeleton rigged up and ready to go. So, if you have both of those, then you are good to go. Now, the way that you can tell if your model does not have a mirror mesh is when you come down here to where it says scale mirror table, right here. See how it says 128? If this says 0, then your model does not have a mirror table. If that is the case, then you will have to go in, you'll click on a different mesh. For example, we're working with this character right here, okay? So click on a character that already has a mirror table so that it's highlighted, right? Come back over here. Now if you notice, it is still highlighted over here, right? Good. Come over to mesh. You're going to click copy mirror table from selected scale mesh. You do this, it'll say, hey, this will replace the mirror table already on the current mesh. Are you sure? Click yes. Basically that's telling you you now have on this model the same skeletal mesh as this model. Now, when you do that, you are going to have to click open the mirror table, go down and make sure that all of these are applied how they should be. What I mean by that, so when you come up here to the top of your screen, there's this little icon right here. It's the sixth icon in, okay? It says show mirror. When you click it, it should look relatively the same. Now, if you notice, I come over here to his hands. When I click show mirror, see how his hands are a little off? That means that my mirror table is not 100% set up correctly. Now, for it just being his hands, I am not going to worry about it. But if it is other parts of the body that are messed up, what you're going to do is you're going to look at the skeleton tree right here, scroll through for like a rough area of what part of the body is messed up. So as you can see, it says pelvis, which is this area here, arm, thigh, all that kind of thing, right? So you'll scroll down to whatever part is messed up. I can give you a quick example of what one that is usually messed up looks like, and that is forearm twists. For some reason, forearm twists are almost always messed up, and if they are, what you're going to do is you're going to come down here and change bone flip axis from none to blank. Okay, but for example, if it's messed up, so do you see how that looks weird when we have the mirror selected? See how that's a little off there? You'll just change this over to either axis none or axis blank. I'll leave it on none since it was already set to none, but I always put it on axis blank for when those parts are messed up. Again, putting it on mirror is a great way of seeing when you fixed everything, because the second you fix, it'll automatically fix on that character. Okay? That's the basics of a skeletal mesh and like how to adjust a mirror table. I would highly recommend not messing with weapon ends. Weapon ends and what is it? I think weapon attach. There's a couple. Oh, MF attach. Do not edit those. Every time I've ever edited those, it messes up the animations, so avoid messing with those. Alright? Now, we have our mirror table, so the next thing you're going to do is you're going to come up here to the seventh icon where it says socket manager. Now, I went ahead and deleted all these just so I can show you how to handle sockets. So, as you can see, when you click open socket manager, there is nothing displayed on our current character. Okay? So, what you are going to do, you're going to find a character you've already done that has its sockets. So for example, we'll use this JD over here, and I'll pull him over to our main monitor so you can see. So this JD here, I've already put his sockets on. So you're going to click open his socket manager, okay? And as you can see, this is what it looks like when your sockets are already applied, okay? You're going to click the little scissor icon. That is going to copy all of the sockets from this model. You can go ahead and close that character out now, okay? Go back over to the character we're working on and just click paste. As you can see, it perfectly pastes all of the sockets from that previous character model. Now, if you need to adjust any of these, like for example, as you can see, the left back mount is really high compared to the right back mount. So we're going to scroll over here, look for left back mount. Relative location is actually just where it's sitting on the model. So red is going to be your x-axis. So we're just going to bring it down to right about here. Okay, so we have it at 3.1. Now, for characters like Cole or Civilian Anya, you know how the weapon shrinks when it's first equipped, or like when it's put on their back? That's due to the relative scale down here. If you want to make sure that it does not scale, leave these numbers at 1. But you'll notice on some characters it's at 0.8, stuff like that. If you have that issue, just turn it to 1.0 and it'll look like a normal weapon. Alright? Outside of that, we are actually done editing this file right here. Now I am going to move his right back mount up as well, just because that is really bugging me that it's so low. You do want the right back mount to sit slightly below the left back mount. It just makes it look a little bit neater, so just keep one slightly below the other. Now we can go ahead and close sockets. Okay, so we've got the basic setup for the character done. Now, this is where it's going to depend on what character you're working with. Some characters you might already have the materials done and set up for. If not, then you'll have to set up the materials. So what we're going to do, so looking at our character file over here, we've got JD Armored. Okay, now I'm not going to go through how to set up an actual material. I'm just going to assume that you kind of know that one. If not, I can make a video for how to set up a material. That is not a big problem at all. Now, I will tell you, when you're working with a character, your first material always has to be a material instance constant. I'll explain why when we get to adding the actual character script. But your first material needs to be a material instance constant. So you can always tell what your first material is by clicking it. It'll highlight it on the model. So then you'll just find the respective material. So we're doing Vintage JD. So we're going to need the first body material, which is this one here. We have made the material instance constant already. So you're just going to click it, highlight it, and click the green arrow. As you can see, it's put right on the model. Okay. Now, I also messed that up apparently, because that is also the wrong texture. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to fix this really quick while I'm sitting here. I don't know how I managed that one, but we'll fix that. Apply that change. There we go. That looks a bit nicer. Alright, so we'll go back over here. So material 2 is going to be his legs, so that's going to be this file here. Material 2 is his head, which is this right here. And material 4 is going to be his hair, so we'll just apply that there. So, as you can see, we have all of that applied. So this is how JD will look in-game for the most part. Now, for this character, I did turn off his specular, so he's not very shiny at all. It's not a good-looking model for this game, just off the bat. What did I just fuck up? Hang on. I just did something. Let's try to realign that up. Alright. I'm gonna hope that doesn't fuck him up too bad, but I don't know what I just fucked up there, so we're just gonna ignore it. So, you are gonna want to leave this screen open for our next step. So from this point, if you already have your icons done and made for the character, which in this case we do, we have the large portrait and the small portrait. I'm not going to go through how to make those. That's a whole other thing with Photoshop, and that's just a whole process. I'm not going to go over that, so we're just going to go ahead and use these two that are already pre-made for us. Okay? So, first thing you're going to do, you're going to come over here into your build, which I'll do here. So this is the basic folder for my build. You've got your 4 main files here. Okay? Ignore my other ones. Those aren't necessary for this. You're going to go into development. You're going to go into source. Go into gear game content. That is where characters are stored. Go into classes. We're going to come down here. Look for gear pawns. Okay? Gear pawns are all of your spawnable characters. So this is JD. So we're going to want a character that has either the proper voice or a similar voice to the character we're working with. So JD does not really have a exact character. I already have a file for a JD made here, but it's using Baird's basic voice. We are just going to go ahead and copy Baird and use him as a base for JD. So he'll have Baird's voice and Baird's head icon when you're down to like the last 5 characters or playing not Wingman, but Warzone or Execution. So we're going to right click Baird G2 MP. We're going to click copy and paste it. So then this will be the start of our file. We're going to right click it. We're going to rename it. So for this character, I'm making JD Vintage. Okay? Since it's Vintage JD we're working with. Now you're going to open it. Okay. So class name has to match whatever you called the file name. So we're going to outright call this JD Vintage. Okay? And you want it to extend human base MP since it's just a normal COG character. This part is going to change based on whether you're doing a COG character or a Locust character. If you're doing a Locust character, let me really quick just demonstrate with that one. So for Locust characters, let me check Scourge. Yes, so you'll just do Locust base MP when you're doing a normal Locust character. Now, if it is just a variant of a different character, for example, we have all of our Grenadiers, which are all under Hunter. So those all extend Locust Hunter base MP. Those are a bit more intricate to deal with. I would recommend just flat out doing the extends Locust base MP config pawn here that you see. That is the easiest way of handling Locusts. In this video, I'm not going to go over Locust. I'm just mainly going to focus on COG characters, but most of the changes here will still apply to Locusts. So, going through this file, you have your head icons and your small character headshots. Okay? These, if you do not already have the file set up for these, don't worry about them. You can keep them as they are in this file. So for example, when we were playing Execution or Warzone, he will have Baird's head in that menu at the top left. Okay? I can walk you through how to fix those later because that's more of a UI based thing. But what's important here are your sounds. This is the character's voice and his facial animations. Okay? Facial animations do not work since this does not have the exact same model as Baird. Otherwise, it would be very easy to just easily translate those. Sound is more why I had you grab Baird for this character, because again, these 2 lines right here are what sounds you're going to be hearing when you're playing as that character. Okay? Now, rim shader material specific equals, and then material instant constant, is whatever this first material right here is, which is again why I told you earlier you want your first material to be a material instance constant. Okay? Now, if you forget where in your file this exact material is, you can just click this little tiny like magnifying glass. Okay? That will instantly click whatever that material is. So you can right click this, copy the full name to the clipboard. Now you're going to go back over to your file and you're going to paste that in place of whatever was sitting here. So you wanted to say rim shader material specific equals, and then you paste your material instance constant right here. Okay? Now, gear pawn mesh is where we get into adding the character itself. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go back to your main file, look for where your skeletal mesh is. So I made a bunch of these. You do not have to do this. I made this for organization purposes. But if you have a bunch of characters that are all the exact same, and I mean the exact same model, but with different materials, you can just have one model and one physics asset. Okay? You do not need to make all these extra copies like I did. I only did this so I could see how they all look in the main editor page individually. Alright? So, you're going to right click your mesh, click copy full name. You're going to go over to Notepad. You're going to paste that right here where it says skeletal mesh. Now, physics asset. I forgot to go over this, but when you finish up with adding your materials to your skeletal mesh, you're going to right click this, tell it to create a new physics asset. Okay? This is basically how the game is going to read the character rolling, animations, all that kind of a thing. So just make sure that that says whatever your mesh is, underscore physics, click OK. This all just automatically works. Just click OK on it. You could also uncheck this if you don't want to see the menu that instantly pops up. But this is the fat menu that it was just showing. So this is just showing you that everything is rigged properly. You can see where the joints are, all that kind of a thing. You can close that. That's not important now. But this physics asset that we just made, we're going to right click, copy that full name, come down here, you're going to paste it in place of the other physics asset. Okay. Now, this next step is only going to apply to characters that have multiple materials. For example, this character has 4 materials. So, what you're going to do, right below physics asset, you're going to click enter, do tab, then you're going to add materials in parentheses 1 equals materials in parentheses 2 and materials in parentheses 3. So, these are the 3 materials that we are now going to copy and paste into that folder. So, you're going to click find object, right click, copy name, paste it in material 1. Come back over, material 2, find it, copy it, and paste it here. Then you're going to come back over, material 3, copy it, and paste it here. Okay, this is the basic setup for it. Now, if it is a character that talks about a masked hair material, you need to delete this. If your character has more than 1 material, you need to delete this option here. This is not going to matter anyway since this character has his own hair material. So delete that, and unless your character already has gore set up, leave this the base that it is. It will have broken gore. I do not currently know how to make proper gore meshes or any of that kind of a thing. So, in the meantime, this is done. So this is how our character is going to look. So you're going to click File, Save. So now, for actually adding, so this character is now set up for the script. But we have a couple of other things we need to add and edit here. We only need 5 of these files. Gear Game DLC is only if you end up creating your character in the Gear Game Content DLC folder, but we made it in classes, so we will not need the default, Gear Game DLC one. Okay, so each of these we're going to implement something into. Geared Sheet Manager is an option one for me, but it's going to be a bit more important for you since you like using the spawn commands. So what you're going to do, come all the way here to the bottom of this folder. At the very bottom, you will see a spawn weapon list. Okay, you're going to come up a little bit. Then you will see spawn pawn list.add and then a bunch of random information. Okay, so there are 2 different sets of spawn pawn commands. Okay, and I'm going to copy them right here so you can see them. So you have locusts and you have cog. The reason why they're different, for locust characters, you need to add a comma team number 2 parameter at the end of it. That just means that it's going to spawn that character in as an actual locust. It's not going to spawn you in on the cog team. You'll still play as them on the cog team. It's just more making sure that the game reads the character properly. Okay, and AI cog gear is just how I always have mine reading. You could change that to change how the actual character handles, but since it's just going to be a normal cog gear, we're going to leave that the same. So, go ahead and just copy one of these that's already done, just to make your life a little bit easier. Paste it. Now, this line right here, pawn name, is going to be what you type in the console command as like a nickname for the character. So for this, we're just going to type in JD Vintage. Okay, now this gear game content.gearpawn needs to match whatever the script name is. So that's going to be JD Vintage, just capitalized a little bit better. So you're going to click File, Save. That is the only thing we have to edit in Geared Sheet Manager. Now, going over to Gear Profile Settings, we have one thing to edit here, and I'll walk you through what each of them, technically both of them are. So if it's a COG character, you're going to edit CMPC. If it's a Locust character, you're going to edit LMPC. Okay? Since it's a COG character, we're just going to do Enter, Tab, CMPC, underscore JD Vintage, comma. Make sure you always put a comma at the end of it so the game knows that there might be another one after it. Click File, click Save. It is as simple as that. But you are going to want to remember what you put here for one of our next steps coming up. I'm going to move this to here just to not confuse when we get to that step. So default game is the next thing we're going to be working with. So we have two different spots to edit here. Kind of like the maps that I was talking about earlier. You're going to come all the way up to the top, right? Scroll down a little bit. So as we scroll down, you will end up seeing the map cycle from the map video earlier. You're going to keep scrolling past that, and then you will see this cog class paths, and you will see a locust class paths. Now, both of these respectively allow AI to be the character you're adding. So for example, you can see we've got our Paddock, Sophia, all these that I've added. The bots can play as these characters. If you do not want a bot playing as that character model, do not add a cog class path here. That will not affect your ability to play as that character. It just makes it so that AI cannot play as that character. But we want AI to be able to play as this, so we're going to do plus cog class paths equals gear game content dot gear pawn underscore cog JD vintage. Okay, that is exactly the name of our character. Now, that's all you're going to edit in this little section. Again, if it's a locust, put that locust character down here. Do not worry about this gear game content.wingman. These do not work. I've not figured out how to get wingman working properly, but we aren't going to worry about that. So you are going to scroll all the way down here, past the MP section from earlier, and you're going to scroll all the way past all of the weapon skins as well. So eventually you will hit right about here. Okay, I went a little too far. So these are your character data providers. Now, depending on where you put it in this section is where it's going to appear in your character roster. What I mean is, if you look, I have my Marcus Judgment, my Marcus Alpha, my Gears 2 Marcus, Gears 2 Gold. Basically, however you organize it in this folder is how it will appear in order in your game. So, for example, I'm going to put this JD character a little bit further down here. Let's see. We'll put him. Got Barrick, Min, Valera. Okay, we've got our outsider Kate right here. I'm going to put this JD right below her. So, first thing you're going to do is you're going to make a tab and just call it JD Vintage Cog Character Summary. Okay? Class path name is going to be gear game content dot gear pawn underscore cog JD vintage. Portrait icon, just copy that from somebody else. Doesn't really matter what that says. I don't personally understand what this is for, but if you are missing that, then the character will not look right at all. I'm also just going to go ahead and copy these parameters to save ourselves some work here. And I'm just going to clear off these sections because I will walk you through how to handle these as we go. Now, I'm going to skip ahead to profile ID just so we can get this out of the way. Whatever you put in your gear profile settings needs to be exactly how it is read in the default game. So we have it as CMPC underscore JD vintage. Now, you do not have to put the comma here. Just leave that how it is. But if this is messed up at all, your character will not spawn in when you try to select it from the main menu. And when you spawn it with a command and die, it'll default you back to Marcus, if that makes sense. So your character portrait large and your character portrait small. If you do not have these already set up, then just pick somebody else's character portrait that you don't really care about, put them in its place. If you already have a character portrait for the character, you're going to go to where it is. So for example, we have our portrait large and our portrait small right here. So you're going to right click we'll do the large one first. So you have our character portrait large, you're going to paste it here. Now you have to edit this a little bit though. So instead of we'll call that a, fucking colon? I don't fucking know. Whatever the single one is, you're going to put down the double. Okay, the hyphen. And you're going to do the same thing over here, but you're going to overwrite texture 2D and that little colon, okay? Do the double there as well. So it'll look like this, okay? Now I'm just going to copy this and paste it right here for character portrait small and change this to 2. Now the reason why is because over here it is in the exact same spot with a slightly different name. So you could very easily just do it that way. Now, this is actually done. So you can click File, Save. So defaultgame.ini is done. We're going to go over to geargame.int. Now, you're going to scroll down past the maps and the weapon skins, just like we did in default game. And you're going to find this COG character summary section. Now I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom for this one. This does not necessarily matter where you put it, because the game does not read these in order. It just reads whatever the COG character summary name is. Okay? We're going to copy one that's already made, paste it. You are going to clear off whatever the name, and the bio say, because we're going to make these all ourselves. So the COG character summary here has to match whatever you put as COG character summary here. Now, I'm going to blow your mind for a minute. As you can see with Kate Outsider, it does not have to match whatever you put the class path name as. This does not have to match, okay? But I like to try to keep them matching to make life a little simpler. You could easily just do what I did here and not have them match. Doesn't really matter. Just figured I'd let you know on that little bit of information. So, what we're going to do is we're going to do JD Vintage COG character summary. I do not know why my notepad will randomly do this, where it'll just overwrite instead of actually, like, you know, working properly. Bugs the shit out of me. That's fine. So, for your character name, we're going to put Vintage JD. So this is how it appears in the UI when you go to select your character. This is the character name that you'll see, and the bio that you'll see written off to the side of them. So for JD, we'll just say shitstick, I don't know, or something quick, just so it's sitting there for the bio, okay? Click File, Save. We are now done in geargame.int. So our last thing we have to edit is in geargamecontent.int. Now, you're going to scroll kind of to the bottom of this. If you look, I go to right about where the COG team ends, which is right here. And again, we're just going to copy someone else's here and paste it. Now, see where it says Gear Pawn, COG, UIR Soldier. This is from my other character, right? Now, this has to perfectly match whatever you put here. These two are one and the same, so we're just going to click Copy, come over here, then we're going to paste it right here, okay? Then you're going to type in Vintage JD. Now this is how the character name will look if a bot is playing as this character. So if a bot does spawn in as Vintage JD, you will see the actual character name will be Vintage JD. Alright? So, after all this is said and done, I'm going to right click and save my JD Armored file. Now, it is probably going to have to save any materials you've made, any textures you've edited, stuff like that. If it does that and it has to save the local shader cache, it will take it a while if your build is like mine. My local shader cache takes around 9 to 10 minutes to save. So if it does have me save that, I will go ahead and stop the video, and then I'll just splice together the next part of the video when I get out of the editor. But when you finish getting all of this set up and saved, you can go ahead and just close down your editor. So as you can see, I've got to save this file. So I'm going to go ahead and take a break from the video while this is going. When it's done, I will come back and show you the next step we have to do. Alrighty, so it's been about 10 minutes. The shader cache just finished saving, so I'm just going to go ahead and continue the process from right here. So you're already going to see me close the game and everything. Just figured I'd try to reduce the fishiness, if you know what I mean. So once this actually finishes saving, I'll go ahead and show you the next step. You can tell when it finishes saving because this little asterisk here will disappear. When that disappears, then you know that whatever you're working on in the editor is done saving. Until then, we'll just sit here awkwardly and patiently waiting. There we go. Alright, so again, JD is done for the time being, so you can just go ahead and close your editor. Okay, now you are going to want to open your file folder. You're going to want to go back to the main part of your build, go into binaries, go into Win64. Now, this is going to be labeled one of a couple of different things. Where are you? Actually, you're not in Win64. That's my bad. So it's over here in regular. So it's either going to be labeled as Unreal front end, or it's going to be labeled as UDK front end. Depending on which of the two you have, you will run whichever one you have. Okay. Now, as you can see, I have a shortcut set up for mine, which is literally just this icon down here on my desktop. I'm just going to go ahead and run that shortcut just because I trust it more. It'll ask you, do you want to allow this app to make any changes? Click yes. Now, you're going to have this screen pop up. Yours might be a little bit of a different size, whatever have you. You're just going to come up here, click script, click compile scripts. Now, this you do not have to do with maps. I'm going to say that here because I kind of forgot to mention it in the maps video. You do not have to do this if you are editing maps. You only have to do this if you edit anything in the Gear Cheat Manager or Gear Profile settings, or if you edit anything in a character's script. If you do anything along either of any of those three files, you need to come over here and compile scripts. Now, if you instantly get a red error that just says could not load gear game content or could not load gear game, that means that your editor is still running. You have to go into Task Manager, close out your editor, go from there, right? Fuck off, Sims. So you have to do that from there. Now, right now, as you see this little icon popped up down here, it'll ask you, do you want to override the existing version of GearGameClasses.h? Click yes on this. For the longest time, I thought you were not supposed to click yes on that, but you are supposed to click yes if you create new CMPC or LMPC values. That makes it so the game actually reads the character changes you made. Now, this is going to take it a little bit. I am not going to cut this here just because I want you to actually see the full process of this file working so you can understand where it stops. So this first section here is all based on the gear game file of your development folder, which is, I don't know why it pulled up there on my other monitor. That is the gear game in your source folder. So that's going to be all of your weapons, game modes, all that type of stuff. So if there are any issues with them, they will appear as red here. And if they appear as red, you need to try to deal with them as quickly as possible. So it's going to go to geargameeditor.u, gear game weapons, all that kind of thing. We are making sure that this, so gear game content-release, this is what you want to keep an eye on. Reason why, at the bottom of this, you will start seeing the gear pawn errors. Now, if you are working on, like we were just working on JD Vintage, right? If you see JD Vintage anywhere over here, you're going to look to see what the error was and try to fix it. I'm not going to go into troubleshooting right now, but if you ever have an issue, feel free to message me on Discord. I can always hop on and help. If you do have an error, I can try to walk you through what the issue is. I tend to ignore these if they're yellow. Usually just means that something is missing, or maybe just like you entered a wrong number or a wrong letter somewhere. Never really anything bad. Just double check them before you fully embrace hopping in to play with that character. For example, I don't have any of these characters fully implemented properly anyway, so I'm not too worried about them here. So this is still going to take a little bit. You're going to see it going through a bunch of other script folders in your development file. It'll just take you a little bit. On average, takes me about 5, maybe 10 minutes tops for it to actually compile all of these. Once it is finished compiling, though, you will be able to actually hop in-game and test to make sure if that change actually did apply or not. So it should be finishing here in about a minute or two. Usually when it hits this Gear Game DLC file, that's pretty much about done. So we will wait and see what it says when it gets to that point. Oh, cool. Alright, as I was saying that, I finished up. So, as you can see, it'll say geargamecontent.exe make succeeded. Okay, so that means we are good to go. You can go ahead and close the Unreal front end. Now, you're going to go ahead and open your build. For me, that's this little shortcut here called Carmine's Variant. So, we are now just going to go ahead and boot up the game. You always want to instantly boot up the game to make sure that whatever changes you made actually did apply. Otherwise, what was the point in kind of actually going through it if you're not going to make sure that it applied, you know? So, we'll get our build up and running here. Again, I'm not going to cut any of this just because I want you to see the full process. I only cut the other time because I wanted to save you from sitting there for 8.5 minutes. But we got our build. We're going to go over to multiplayer. Come down to our character selection. Scroll all the way down here. And then we should see our JD character somewhere around, here, right here. So we've got our vintage JD with the icon we had selected and the spot we had picked. So, click him. Now, a good way to test if your profile settings actually worked. If you back out of this and close the options menu, and you reopen it, and your character says Marcus Phoenix, then the profile settings did not stick. So just go into your default game, make sure the default game and gear profile settings have the same CMPC value. Okay? But we're just going to click versus, private, hop in a quick little team deathmatch, just to make sure this character model actually works. Start her up. And we will look and see if the character did apply or not. I will eventually walk you through how to get decent looking portraits. That's just its own thing, and I don't fully know the proper way to get the animation map working correctly. So I tend to just try to find the actual picture of the character from its respective game. Hence why that's from the Rev build where they have JD already made. I just took their profile portrait for him. So, we'll see if our character actually works properly here. We can go from there. Alright, as you can see, we've got JD. Looks to be working just fine. Whenever you implement a character, always find a wall and turn, face either direction, just to make sure animations work, just to make sure that everything is lined up correctly.
Mine now.
And as you can hear, we've got
Great. Just great.
Baird's voice lines for JD. Again, why we had picked Baird earlier when we first started this process. So, that is the full guide on how to make a character playable. If you got any questions, feel free to let me know. I've got no problem hopping on to walk you through anything. But that'll be it.